So, good afternoon, class. So, I'm here to tackle force. So, pag-usapan natin kung ano yung force, ano yung mga parang persona niya, okay, kung ano yung makikita nyo sa buong, ano natin, buong SEM na to, technically, kung ano yung pwedeng i-behave, ano yung behavior ng force, kung pwede ba siyang isang force, pwede bang yung isang system, one force na lang siya, and so on. Okay? So, ayan. Force is the term assigned to mechanical interaction between bodies. Okay, so once na merong interaction between bodies, technically, there's force acting on it. Okay? A force can affect both the motion and the deformation of the body on which it acts. So technically, sa statics, we deal sa statics, hindi man siya technically nagkakos ng motion, pero we talk about how all forces on one body or one system is in equilibrium. Okay? And deformation, mostly it will come up pagdating ng strength of materials. Okay? So, next semester nyo yun, guys, kung magano kayo. And force may be defined as any action that tends to change the, yun nga, binanggit lang din yan, change the state of rest or motion of a body to which it is applied. So, ito yung, ang tinutukoy ng force dito is yung external force applied sa body. So, naalala nyo yung first law of motion natin. Okay? So, force may arise from direct contact between bodies or they may be applied at a distance, okay, such as gravitational attraction. Contact forces are distributed over a surface area of the body, whereas forces acting at a distance are distributed over the volume of the body. So, more on terminologies lang naman yan. And lastly, the three quantities required to completely define force are called its specification or characteristics. So, na-discuss na naman natin yung quantity, di ba? We discussed what is scalar and what is vector. And nilist down natin kung ano yung mga vector quantity, ano yung scalar quantity. And technically, force is one of the vector quantity. So, ibig sabihin, yung force natin, bukod sa meron siyang magnitude, meron din tayong tinatawag na direction. Okay? So, we know direction by giving its angle. Okay? So, either 0 to 360 degree. And may natag din tayong point of application. So, point of application will affect once we tackle about momentum. Okay? So, proceed tayo dito. So, technically, nabanggit nga dito guys, dito sa fourth bullet na it can be a one force or can be a distributed force. Okay? Pwede siyang concentrated or pwede siyang distributed. So, ayan. So, meron tayong two types of forces which is matatakal din naman natin. So, merong concentrated force. So, ibig sabihin yan na yung ano. So, it affects only at one point lang naman. So, technically, na-discuss din natin sa vector quantity na we have three types of vector, di ba? We have the free vector, the sliding vector, and the fixed vector. In a sense, force is a fixed vector. Okay? So it only tied to a point of application as what the the sentence said here. Okay? So force is a fixed vector tied to a point of application. But if one is interested only in its external effect, technically it can be treated also as sliding vector. So it passes through a certain line of action. Okay? So in a sense, we can say that force is technically a fixed vector, pero pwede siyang i-treat as a sliding. Yun naman yung pinopoint out dito. Okay? So, technically, ito yung ginagawa natin sa vector. Ito yung ginagawa natin last prelim. Okay? Reduction of concurrent force systems. So, doon sa vector quantity last prelim, we deals with certain vectors lang. Pwedeng displacement, pwedeng velocity, pwedeng force, pwedeng weight, and so on. Pero dito, focus tayo ngayon sa force. So, dito, ina-explain lang dito na any number of force vectors we have or any force in a certain system, we can reduce it to one force. Okay? Or one concentrated force. So, yung one concentrated force na yun, guys, is tinatawag natin na resultant or the total force or total vector. Okay? So, tinatawag siyang Note natin. Okay, nawala na yun. Yung tawag natin siyang, we can call it as resultant, mostly. Nakikita nyo dito sa ano natin, resultant. Total force, total, ganon. Okay, and so on. Pero mostly, resultant yung term na lumalabas dyan. So, force are said to be concurrent at a point if their lines of action intersect at that point. So, dito, kino-consider na yung force natin as sliding vector. Okay? Technically, bago tayo mag-proceed, pag natin masabi na concurrent sila, we make sure dapat na there is one intersection sa lahat ng forces natin. Kahit ilang forces pa yan, magkakaroon ng intersection yan. Okay? And yung intersection na yon is what we call origin. Okay? With the forces now at the common point, O, or origin, 0, 0, compute the resultant from the vector sum. So, yun na yung tinuro ko sa inyo. So, pwede kayong technically component system na yun eh. Okay? And this resultant, which is also equivalent to the original force system. The line of action of R must be passed through. So, of course, dapat din yung R din natin, dapat mag-pass through din siya technically sa point of concurrency natin or sa origin natin. Okay? In order for the equivalence to be valid. Okay? So, as what I've said in the first place, technically redundant tong lesson na to. Okay? So, ano yung na-discuss ko nung vector, ganun lang din yan. Pero we focus or we look on specific lalo na sa forces. Okay? So, let's proceed answering 3 examples. Tapos, 3 or 2? 3. Okay, so determine the resultant of two forces. So, let's say we have two forces acting on this object, and kunin natin yung resultant niya or yung total sum ng vector, total sum ng dalawang force na meron tayo. Okay? So, ayan. I hope may copy kayo ng PowerPoint natin, and ayun. Para diretso whiteboard. Tapos, you may off your video if just in case para hindi kayo makita sa recorded video natin. Kaya so, ayan. So, we have here, let's say, try natin i-drawing. I'm going to draw myself. So, ayan. So ano na to? Nagloloko ah. Ano na to? Yung free body diagram na mismo. So, sabi, meron daw tayong system. Okay? So, may working system tayo. So, and let's check natin. Okay. Tapos, we have two forces acting on it. So, first, we have the P with 40 Newton. Okay. And with an angle of P 40 Newton. And angle of 20 degree from positive x-axis. And next, meron tayong isang force din na nag-act above nung P force natin, which is Q. And ang angle niya from P is 25 degree. Okay? Yan. And meron siyang, yan nga, from P, 25 degree. Tapos, meron siyang magnitude na 60 Newton. So, find the resultant. Find the total sum of the two forces. Okay? Teka. So, ayan. So, find resultant. So, to get resultant, katulad nung naging natin, practice natin before, we can use the component method. Okay? So, we have the x and y component. So, x component and y component. Okay? So, first, P. So, dahil technically, Along ano naman siya guys, along x-axis, so kung ano naman yung nakikita niya angle, as is na yan. Okay, pero ayun, ano pa rin, analyze pa din yung problem. So, ayan. So, 40 cosine 20, and then 40 sine 20 degree. So, next, we have Q. So, Q natin, hindi porket 25 degree yung pinakita. Okay, so, explain ko na lang din sa part na to. So, magiging 45 siya. Kasi, dapat, ang gamit natin angle, as what I'm saying is, from positive x-axis. Okay, so, magiging 60 cosine 25 ay 45 degree, and then 60 sine 45 degree. Okay? So, summation of force along x, tapos summation of force along y. Summation of force along y. So, kunin natin. So, 40 cosine 20 plus 60 cosine 45 or is equals to 80.014 Newton. Okay? And next, 40 sine 20 plus 60 sine 45 shift store B is equal to 56.107 Newton. So, meron na tayong summation of x, forces along x, and summation of forces along y. Let's solve na yung resultant nila. Okay, resultant is equal, R is equals to summation of forces along x is equal to the sum of the squares of x and y. Okay? Yeah. So, R is equals to, wait lang natin yan, equal, so meron siyang 97.726 Newton. Okay? So may R na tayo. So di naman hinahanap yung direction, pero kunin na lang din natin para mapakita natin sa equation kung nasaan yung resultant natin. Okay? So angle is equals to tan theta raised to negative 1 summation forces along y over summation forces along x. Shift tan alpha b over alpha a. So, meron siyang angle na 35.039 degree. Okay, so draw natin kung saan siya banda. Yung resultant natin. Slightly above lang nung P. Okay, so yun yung R. Meron siyang resultant na 97.726 Newton and with an angle of almost 35 degree. Okay? So, madali lang siya, di ba? Di mo siya ganun kahirap. So, ayun. Proceed na tayo ngayon sa... So, technically, katulad yung sabi ko sa inyo, redundant na tong lesson na to. Kasi, kung ano yung ginawa natin last sem, yun lang din ginagawa nyo ngayong first lesson natin. Okay. Okay, so... let's proceed now to number 2. So, we have this problem number 2. Find the resultant of the three concurrent forces shown in the figure. So we have the force 1 with a slope na 4 over 3, 50 Newton. We have the force 2 with a 10 Newton and 60 degree from negative x-axis, and we have force 3, 60 Newton going south. Okay? So medyo tricky siya, pero let's try to solve to. Medyo madali lang to once na makita yung way of solving natin. Okay? So, ayan. So, let's proceed na. Okay, so, let's draw yung free body diagram natin para mas magets niyo. So, yeah. Okay, so we have F1 na may value na 50 Newton and meron siyang rise over run na 4 over 3. Okay? Next, we have F2. Meron siyang angle from negative x-axis sa 60. Okay? Then 10 Newton. So, 60. And lastly, we have the F3 na merong direction na south lang. Okay, going south. So, ayan. So, ayan yung mga ano natin. So, let's try to solve na mga to. Okay, wag yan. So, ito, F1, 50 Newton. Okay, F2, 10 Newton. And lastly, F3, 60 Newton. So, mapapansin nyo, sir, paano yon? Walang angle. Walang angle yung F1 natin. So, diyan natin magagamit yung slope natin or rise over run. So, balik tayo sa TOA natin, guys. Diba, meron tayong ano ng TOA. TOA. Ano ba yung TOA natin? So, ito. Yun pala, when it comes to paano ba to? So, when it comes to parallel lines, so, ayan. Yung angle na to, bale, yung angle na to, yung angle na kinikreate nung rise over run natin or yung mini triangle natin dito is equal din sa angle na to. Okay? Kasi nga, meron tayong tinatawag na relations or properties when it comes to parallel lines. So, ito yung parallel lines natin. Ayan. Yan, tsaka yan. So, yung sabi, yung interior angles, okay, on one side is technically congruent. Okay? So, yun yung mga term na ginagamit nung high school kami. Okay, congruent, interior, exterior, complementary, supplementary, and so on. Pero yun nga, ulitin ko, yung angle na kinikreate tong mini triangle dito is technically equal din sa angle na to. Okay? So, para first, we must get the angle here. Okay? So, para makuha yon, and meron na tayong sides, so we can use TOA. Okay? So, para tayong nag-get ng direction. So, tan theta is equals to rise over run. Okay? Rise, R-I-S-E. Tapos run, R-U-N. Okay? So, theta is equals to tan raised to negative 1, 4 over 3. And theta is equals to shift tan 4 over 3 is equals, meron siyang angle. So, let's say we have an angle of 53.13 degree. Okay? So, ayan na yun. So, shift, store, C. So, meron na tayong angle ng F1 natin and technically, enough na yun. Okay? So, we can now solve the whole system. So, as always, we can use X and Y component method. Okay? So, X component and then Y component. So, may tuturo ko sa inyong di siya technically technique, pero para makita nyo lang yung mga tamang signs. Tamang gagamitin yung signs kung positive ba siya or negative. Okay? So, first, we have here F1. So, yung F1 natin, sa quadrant 1 siya, and ang direction niya is northeast. So, kung direction niya is northeast, technically, yung X and Y component natin is going east and then going north. Okay? Ganun lang yun. Medyo tamang teknikan lang. Okay? So, kung yung F1 is going northeast, katulad ng sabi ko, dapat yung component niya, yung X component niya, is dapat going east, while yung Y component niya is going north. Okay? Tama lang yon kasi northeast ka eh. Kaysa naman ang gawin mo, ano ka, pa-northeast ka nga, tapos pa-down to, so wala din. Okay? So, dapat, yung vector mo is papunta, yung component ng vector mo is dapat papunta dun sa vector. Okay? So, and so on. So, technically, ganyan. Okay, next, dito tayo sa F2. So, ito, ginagamit lang to pag ayaw nyo nang kunin yung supplementary angle ng F2 natin. Okay? Pero kayo bahala, pwede nyo kunin yung supplementary, which is equal to 120. Pero either of the two, discarding nyo how to solve this as long as you can get the correct answer. Okay? And next, we have here in F2, ang direction ng F2 natin is northwest. So, of course, west yung X component natin and yung Y component natin is going north. Okay? So, palit natin sa ibang kulay. So, ayan. So, anong purpose niyan? So, makikita nyo, technically, kung makikita nyo, opposite direction yung X component natin. Okay? And Kung separate direction sila, one of them must be positive and one of them must be negative. Okay? And unspoken rule when it comes to engineering mechanics is that, sama na natin, all all upward forces is positive, and all eastward forces is positive also. So kung ano yan, mas makikita nyo yan in the coming future, yung mga ganyang notation. Okay, so ibig sabihin yan, lahat daw ng upward forces natin, guys, is dapat positive. So kung positive yung lahat ng upward forces natin, then technically lahat ng downward forces natin ay negative. So kung ganun din when it comes to going right and going left forces. So kung yung going right forces natin, guys, is positive, so technically going left must be negative. So ibig sabihin nun, so kung nakuha natin yung idea na yon, guys, no need to get the complementary angle. Ay, supplementary angle. Okay? Supplementary angle yung F2. Okay? Supplementary angle means that the sum of the two angle is equal to 180. Okay? Dagdag lang. Alam nyo, may mga kilala kayong nag-aaral ng trigo, na nahihirapan. Okay? So, ayun. Dagdag ko lang yan. So, we can now solve X and Y component. So, X component, first sa F1, F2, and then F3. So first, F1, meron na tayong angle, guys. So dahil yung angle natin is respect to positive x-axis as is, okay, wala tayong babaguhin. So 50 cosine 53.13 and then 50 sine 53.13. Okay? Next, F2. Ito yung medyo tricky. So pwede yung gawin dito. So dahil katulad sabi ko sa inyo, guys, all forces going right positive, so all forces going left must be negative. So we can now say that negative 10 cosine 60 and then positive 10 sine 60. Okay, so pwedeng ganyan gawin nyo dyan, or pwedeng isulat dito, pwedeng isulat dyan is 10 cosine 120 kasi either of the two mag-equate yan into negative. Okay? Either of the two mag-equate yan into negative. So, ganun din dito. Sine 120. So, kayo bahala. Discarding nyo whatever you choose as long as tama yung mga negative sign tsaka positive sign nyo. Kasi, ito-total nyo yan sa dulo. Okay? Either of the two, parehas lang yan. Kahit try nyo i-solve nyo yan sa calculus ninyo, negative 10 cosine 60 is equals to negative 10 is equal to 10 cosine 120. So, proceed na tayo ngayon sa F3. So, makikita yung F3 natin, guys. Going down, wala tayong X component. Kahit ang ganito lang X component yan, guys. Kahit sabihin natin, maglagay tayo ng 60 cosine 270, walang value yan. Okay? Kahit 60 cosine 270 yan, equals to 0 yan. And lastly, kahit maglagay kayo ng 60 sine 270 dito, negative yan. Okay? So negative 60. So, meron na tayo. Burahin ko na lang to. So, meron na tayong components nung tatlong vectors natin. So, we can now solve for their summation of forces. Summation of forces along X and then summation of forces along Y. So, paalala ko lang, 0 at 0 pa din to. Kung ano mangyari dyan, 0 yan. Okay? Okay, solve nyo pa. Ayan. So, solve na natin. Okay, we have... So, dahil summation, guys, i-add nyo lang yan. Okay, add nyo lang. So, 50 cosine 53.13 minus 10 cosine 60. So, shift store A. So, equals to 25.0000 yan. Okay, hanggang 4th decimal places ata yan. And lastly, 50 sine 53.13 plus 10 sine 60 minus 60 is equal to negative, shift store P, is equal to negative 11.34. Okay? Newton. So, yan. Newton. So, ngayon natin makuha yung resulta. So, R is equal to summation of forces squared, summation of forces along Y squared. Okay, so R is equal to Wait natin, squared plus alpha A squared plus A is equal to 27.452 Newton. Okay, so yan. So, ito yung final answer natin. So, ayan. So, para makita natin sa system natin kung nasaan nag-act yung resultant, i-kuha natin yung direction. Okay? And, remind ko lang guys yung sign nung x and y natin. So, technically, positive x, negative yung y. So, we can safely assume that our resultant is on quadrant 4. Okay? So, kung quadrant 4 siya, kaya nabala ko pa na gagawin sa angle. Okay? Pero i-minus plus 360. Okay. So, tan theta alpha b over alpha a. Ayan. So, we have an angle of negative 24.4 or 399, negative 24.4 degree. So, negative yung lumabas. And as what I said, sa quadrant 4 siya, technically, plus 360 lang to. Okay? Plus 360. So, we have an angle of 335. So, andito siya banda. Yan. So, angle niya, yan, 335 yan. Okay? Or ito yung negative 24. Negative 24.34. Ay, negative 24.4 pala. Okay? So, yan yung R natin. Okay? So, ayan. Okay, so this is now for the last problem for this session. Okay? So, I hope hindi kayo mahirapan. I mean, hindi kayo medyo nakakalito na to, pero kayang-kaya nyo to. Naniniwala ako. Okay, so, let's start. Okay. So, yan. I'll find the value. Okay, so a hook is subjected to 3 forces. F1 with 180 degree Newton with an angle of 45 degree. Okay, from the positive x-axis clockwise. Tapos F2 with 50 Newton and meron siyang angle na 60 degree. Okay, and F3 with 30 Newton as shown in the figure 2.21. Determine the magnitude and direction of the resultant. So, ito ngayon yung kagandahan pag marunong tayong maggawa ng free body diagram. Okay, so technically, makikita niya, nakakatamad i-solve. Ang hirap. Ay. So, sabi niya, okay, medyo mahirap. Ganun. So, let's try i-draw natin in a simpler way. Okay? So, sit tayo ngayon sa whiteboard. So, number 3. Okay, first, draw natin. Okay, we have, so, free body diagram tayo. So, mapapansin nyo guys, yung lahat nung forces natin is nag-act below x-axis. Okay, hindi siya, wala tayong forces sa taas. Okay, so medyo madali naman na yan pag nakuha nyo na mag-drawing. So first, we have the F1. So let's say na lahat sila nag-intersect at one point and ito yon. May F1 tayo, ganyan, and meron siyang angle, sabi, alpha 1, meron siyang angle na 45 degree. Okay, 45 degree. And then, next, meron tayong F2. Okay, F2, below din, pero bandang left side. F2, so, ayan siya. And meron siyang angle from negative x-axis. So, balik, kung makita nyo yung drawing, ayan yung alpha 2. Okay, theta 2, or whatever you call it. And lastly, we have the F3, na dito nag-aano. Okay. Yan. F3 natin. Along, mapapansin nyo yung F3 natin mismo guys is along, ano siya? Along negative x-axis. Okay? So, ayan. So, we have here F1, 180 Newton. Okay. F2 equal to 50 Newton. And lastly, meron tayong F3, 30 Newton. Okay? Ayan. F3, 30 Newton, and so on. So, ayan na yung working equation natin. Okay? Ayan na yung ano natin. So, mapapansin nyo, meron tayong isang forces, quadrant 4. Okay? Meron tayong forces dito sa quadrant 3 and isang forces along negative x-axis. So, ayan. Let's proceed na on x and y component. Okay. So, first F1, analyze natin. So, katulad sabi ko guys, kaya tinuro din yung mga quadrants para alam nyo yung kung ano yung mga negative and positive. Okay? And technically, almost lahat naman ng angle natin is along x-axis. So, madali na lang yan. Okay, so F1 natin is nasa, ano siya? Nasa tawag doon, quadrant 4. So, technically, quadrant 4, southeast. So, yung x component natin is pa south. Ayan. And, yung y component natin is ay pa east tong x while pa south yung y. So, x component is positive. So, 180 cosine 45 and then negative 180 sine 45. Okay. Next, F2. F2 is southwest. So, technically, kung southwest yan, we can say that kung southwest yan, so ito siya. Going, ito, layer, tapos. So, parehas negative. Okay? So, parehas negative yung F2 natin. So, kaya ako pinapoint out na parehas negative, hindi nyo na need kailangan kunin yung angle niya mismo from positive x-axis. Okay? Hindi nyo na kailangan kunin supplementary, complementary, and so on. So, yun yung purpose nun. Okay? So, pwede na kayo mag-proceed as negative 50. Negative 50 cosine 60 dahil respect to x-axis naman. So, negative 50 sine 60 din. And lastly, F3. So, F3 guys, ang direction niya is west. So, wala naman siyang south or north. So, negative 30 na agad yan. Okay? Kung gusto niyo lagyan, kung gusto niyo with respect to ano, pwede sabihin na ano to. Pwede sabihin na 30 cosine 180 and 30 sine 180. Technically, sine 180 katulad siya ng cosine 270. Mag-equate at mag-equate yan ng 0. Okay? So, ayun. So, cut. Ayan. So, 0. Ayan. So, let's now proceed solving the x and y. Okay? So, ayan. 180 cosine 45 minus 50 cosine 60 minus 30 is equals to 72.279 Newton. Okay? Shift store A. Tapos ito. So, paras negative yan. 180 sine 45 plus 50 sine 60. So, ST. Negative 170.580. Ayan. Newton. So, shift store B. So, tulad ng sabi ko sa inyo, ayun nyo, huwag kayong malilito pag ano na kayo. Alpha B squared plus alpha A squared square root of answer. So, ayan. So, R is equal to alpha b squared. Tama, positive lang lumalabas. So, alpha b squared plus alpha a squared plus square root of answer. So, we have resultant na equal to 185.261. Ay, sagot na pala to, sorry. So, R is equal to 185.262 Newton. Okay? So, meron tayong resultant and so, yun lang may nahanap. At hanap din pala yung direction. So, based naman dito, positive yung x natin, negative yung y. So, technically, nasa quadrant 4 din yan. Okay? So, kung nasa quadrant 4 siya, kung natin yung theta. Shift tan. Angle niya is Okay, yun pala. Wait lang. Shift down. Uh-huh. So, ang angle is negative 67.036 degree. So, ito yun. So, kung dodraw natin siya, dito siya ba? So, ito yung angle na yun. Okay, so, ayun. Yun yung final answer natin. Guys. And that's all for this session. Okay, so if you have any questions, feel free to approach me. And